Welcome to Greenline Melbourne, the city's community first podcast where we explore how to build a better future for all Melburnians. I'm your host, Aishi, and today we're diving into a topic that's reshaping the way our city looks, feels, and grows: green infrastructure and how it's influencing demand for high density apartment living. As Melbourne continues to grow upwards rather than outwards, questions about how we create livable, sustainable, and desirable spaces in dense urban areas are becoming more urgent. Think green roofs, living walls, and communal garden terraces, but also think policy, economics, and real world development challenges. To help unpack all this, I'm joined by three brilliant guests from different corners of the property world: a planner, developer, and an economist, each who bring a unique lens to this conversation. First up is Tahlia, a town planner from the City of Melbourne, with expertise in Melbourne's urban policy framework. Tahlia, thanks for being here. Let's start with you. Given the spatial constraints in high-rise areas, how does the current planning framework under Plan Melbourne actually support or hinder the integration of green infrastructure into these developments?
Thank you for that question, Aishi. So, when discussing green infrastructure and high-rise developments, we know space is limited, but the need for nature is greater than ever. As our urban population increases, particularly in vertical neighbourhoods, planning needs are required to do more than just accommodate density. They are also required to deliver quality of life, environmental resilience, and meaningful public and private open spaces. The current planning framework does offer support. At the state level, Plan Melbourne sets a strong strategic direction for embedding sustainability and livability into urban growth. Locally, the Melbourne Planning Scheme incorporates design principles that encourage greening at all levels, from green roofs and vertical gardens to shaded walkways and communal terraces. Our urban forest strategy and green factor tool are examples of how we're encouraging developers to integrate vegetation into the built form, even in tight spaces. However, we also do recognise that many of these initiatives are still policy driven rather than mandatory. Developers are often responsive to market demand or sustainability incentives, but unless green infrastructure is clearly embedded in planning controls, it risks being overlooked. That's why we are consciously working to strengthen planning overlays and urban design frameworks, particularly in dense activity centres, to make greenery a fundamental part of design, not just an add-on. There are currently constraints, but they've also sparked creativity. We are seeing more innovation in vertical greening, shared rooftop spaces, and integrated water-sensitive design. Our role as planners is to guide that innovation and ensure that as Melbourne grows upward, it also grows greener, more inclusive and better connected to nature at every level of the city.
Amazing. Thank you, Talia. That was super insightful, and it really highlights how policy and built form are deeply connected. Next, let's hear from the development side of things. Georgia is a property developer from Texas, working on a number of high-rise density residential projects across inner Melbourne. Georgia, from your perspective, what are the main challenges or incentives you face when incorporating green elements like rooftop gardens or vertical greenery into high-rise apartment projects in Melbourne?
Well, there are many challenges when trying to implement this green infrastructure into our projects, specifically our high-rise apartments. One major issue I'm constantly having to confront is the structural and regulatory aspect of incorporating green elements. We have such tight constraints as to what can be where, whether this be regarding rooftops, vertical gardens, or in the lobbies or the apartments themselves. When planning where greenery can be incorporated, we are inundated with rules and restrictions through Docklands and South Banks Council and have to consider things such as maintenance and emergency access, load limitations, local councils' building compliance orders, and the list just goes on. Another issue we face is operation and maintenance costs. To keep things in order, it is essential that the green infrastructure be to a high standard to ensure they are maintained to the expectation of previously mentioned regulations. This can be very costly and further causes the issue of investors and lenders wanting to even be involved in these types of projects because, to put it bluntly, when the property market is as competitive as it is, sustainability is not often a priority. It doesn't provide a strong return and simply appeases corporate social responsibility in the eyes of many people involved in this industry. On the other hand, however, we do face many incentives when planning and incorporating green infrastructure as well. We often have government incentive as sustainability is a hot topic across the board right now, and being proactive is highly favourable from a government perspective. We often interact with City of Melbourne's Green Factor tool, which actually assists in designing and constructing developments that incorporate green infrastructure. It can also be deemed a preferred option for our prospective buyers as society is moving forward with sustainability being front of mind. These eco-conscious buyers are opting for our greener developments as they have the clarity that they are buying into a sustainable future. And of course, by incorporating green infrastructure, it really promotes our brand reputation as we are aligning ourselves with society's moral compass and growing values.
Great. Thank you so much, Georgia. That was really interesting, and especially hearing about how design ambition can sometimes clash with cost or regulation. Finally, let's turn to the economic lens. Cathy is an urban economist from Deloitte who's been tracking how environmental and amenity factors influence housing demand. Cathy, from your perspective, how does green infrastructure and high-density developments affect long-term apartment values and rental demand in precincts like Docklands or South Bank?
Thanks for having me, Aishi. So from an economic point of view, green infrastructure is playing a bigger and bigger role in shaping apartment values and rental demand, especially in high-density areas like Docklands and South Bank. These are two of Melbourne's most built-up suburbs with lots of high-rise buildings and not many green spaces. For example, Dockland has one of the lowest levels of green spaces from trees in inner Melbourne, only about 5% compared to 22% in nearby Carlton. Because the area is mostly made up of buildings, roads and footpaths and not much natural shade, areas like Docklands and South Bank can be up to 4 to 6 degrees hotter than surrounding suburbs in summer. This makes these areas less comfortable to live in, especially during heat waves, which are becoming more frequent with climate change. That's where green infrastructure makes a difference. Things like rooftop gardens, green walls, street trees, and better buildings design help cool down the environment, reducing energy bills and improving overall livability. From a market perspective, that matters. A 2023 report by Knight Frank found that apartments with sustainable features in inner Melbourne were renting up to 9% more than standard ones. Buyers are also showing more interest in buildings with green certifications, and energy-efficient features are becoming key selling points. Buyers and renters are beginning to prioritize livability, not just where the property is. So in the long run, if areas like Docklands and South Bank want to stay competitive in the apartment market, green infrastructure isn't just a nice benefit. It's an investment in demand and value. Developers who include it are more likely to attract buyers and renters who care about sustainability and quality of life. And as climate pressure grows, the demand will only get stronger.
Great. Thank you so much, Cathy. And thank you to all our guests for the thoughtful insights. It's clear that green infrastructure isn't just an aesthetic extra. It's becoming a vital piece of what makes high-density living sustainable and attractive. That's it for this week on Greenline Melbourne. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to subscribe. And if you've got questions, comments, or want to share how green spaces have shaped your experience of city living, get in touch with us on Instagram or via our website. Until next time, keep it green, Melbourne.